Next is the exposure and contrast. Exposure affects everything bright and every single color, everything, which means all these four parts are set by the exposure. If I increase the exposure, it will make completely white. If I decrease, it will make completely black. Exposure affects every single thing. So exposure affects the whole histogram. So we don't play as much or go as much, especially in a JPEG photo, as is wild in the exposure part. Around this part is perfect. Contrast is the tonal contrast or the tones of the photo or the darker areas. So do I need much less contrast or more? Around here looks perfect for a skin tone. So that's what basic scheduling or what that's the basic like a style of what I use to edit my photos. It might vary from person to person, editor to editor, whatever they feel like. I do it this way. Next is clarity. Clarity is basically the sharpness and the contrast of a particular pixel. So if I increase the clarity, you will see it will decrease the saturation and increase the contrast and the sharpness and the grains of the photo. And it will create this kind of a halo effect around this border area, around the bokeh, around the much more background subjects. It will create this kind of a weird artifacts in the photo. And with the skin tones, it will create this kind of a shadows pattern. So we don't need as much. Maybe something around this is enough. Dehaze is basically if your photo is hazy. Let me find the photo. We had one photo. Yeah. So let me show dehaze. It's okay. Font will load. Okay, let's do it here. Does it load? Okay. So for just for the dehaze part, if I will show you. So you can see there's a dehaze coming from this area. If I increase the dehaze, it will lower that down. If I decrease the dehaze, it will make it brighter. So that's what dehaze does. It will take out anything which is hazy and make it much more vibrant, much more clear, much more contrasting. Next is the vibrance. So we have two color panels. We have CMYK, we have RGB. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellows, and blacks. So in vibrance, what we call it the secondary colors, the secondary tones, while the saturation is the primary tones. So if I increase or decrease the vibrance, it will affect more the secondary tones. If you can see, if I decrease completely, yellows, reds, and the greens are still visible while other colors are gone. If I increase the saturation, every single color is affected. So instead of going in saturation, we always go with the vibrance a bit. If I increase in clarity to bring the balance back in the photos. So if I go before and after, so this was the before photo, this is the after photo. There is not as much of a difference because it's an already edited photo, so we don't need to make as a difference. Difference is much more visible in a raw photo as compared to a JPEG photo, which I will show you after this one. So the tone curve, next is the tone curve. Tone curve, what it does is basically give the tone or the mood to the photo. Again, tone curve is the same as the histogram, as you can see. It's same as histogram. Top part affects the highlights, bottom part affects the shadows. So in this, I will just make a simple S curve and we call it a tape. Now the other points are as straightforward as basics and tone curve is. First of all, we have HSL, we have hue, saturation, and luminance. Hue is basically the spectrum of a color, saturation is the intensity of the color, luminance is the brightness of the color. I won't go as much of detail in here. We do have a dedicated session in the masterclass for HSL. It's a bit of detailed topic. Next is split toning. Again, split toning is used to give a mood to a photo. If I want to maybe create a orange and a teal look, I already have an orange and teal here. I will just go there, decrease the saturation and give that look. Again, this is much more typical thing to understand. So again, HSL and split toning is set dedicated in the masterclass session. Now let's go to detail. Detail is basically to set three things: sharpening, noise reduction, and color correction. Sorry, colors noise reduction. So I say this photo is considerably clean. We don't have as much grains. So if I go on and set the point around, let me find the darkest point. This is the one. If I increase the sharpening, so you can see that there is much more grains introduced into the photo that is visible around here as well. So a little bit of sharpening is enough. Luminance will take that sharpening off or the grains off and make it much more smoother. Color noise reduction will basically take out the grains and the noise from the colors, the individual colors of the photo. Next is the next correction. Pretty straightforward. If you are using a camera, a professional camera, you will have several options. This is taken from a Sony camera. In the JPEG, it doesn't allow you to set up any profile correction as you don't need it. It is already embedded in the photo. Neither it will allow you to use chromatic operation. It is already set by the camera itself. Now the transform. Transform is to make the photo straighter if it is maybe a bit in a weird option, a weird aspect ratio, in a weird, say, distorted. If it's distorted, you can use the transform motion. Again, it's already edited photo, so we don't need that. Effects. If you like creating vignette is this. So if you like creating vignetting, you can go it from here. Maybe set the midpoint as you want, the roundness as you want. Let's just make it darker so you can see. Should I want to whatever the roundness I want? Okay. Feather, how much feather I want, how much highlight I want, and I can create vignetting. Grain is if I want to introduce artificial grains in the photo and give it that vintage look. So I can do it that from here. Calibration, again, it's a part of HSL and split toning, so I'm not going in much more detail. Calibration is even more powerful than HSL and split toning combined. In a calibration, you can change a lot that would have not been possible in HSL even. Okay,